The idea behind the show is simply asking guests what they would tell a stranger on a plane if they were sitting next to them and the stranger asked them for advice.
The scenery is passing very fast, but the seer is constant. The one who's seeing is the same.
Let me appreciate you for asking a question that I haven't been asked after 2,500 or so interviews over the years.
Is you have to drop the ego, which is everyone's greatest obstacle.
In 2008, Grant and I had been married for 4 years. I was pregnant with my first child. The economy was collapsing, and we were on the verge of losing everything financially.
It's so exciting to be here today with Marie Diamond. And, Marie, where I'd like to start, and, maybe this is a big question to start with, but since I'm only going to ask a few questions today, a shorter type interview, I guess I'm going to start in with big questions. This is a question that I call the time machine question. And it's pretty simple. If you could jump into a time machine, go back and talk to a younger version of yourself and give her some life advice based on what you've learned in the years since, what do you think you might tell younger Marie?
Well, I think I would tell her that all will be okay, right? Because I grew up in a household with a lot of fear and a lot of abuse, physically and emotionally. And I think at that time she couldn't see she couldn't see the future. She couldn't see that all will be well, and that she would herself raise a very happy family where the kids and the parents are just so connected and so dear to each other. So I would say, life will change, because sometimes when we are down in our life, we can't see the up, right? We can't see when the valley of our experiences, where there's a lot of fear, we can't see there will be times that we'll be happy. And so I would actually tell her, you will reach a mountain and you will be happy one day.
Amazing. I love that. So how about inspiration? So I always get, I'm fascinated by how people get inspired, so I've asked people who inspired them, and it's everywhere from somebody who passed away 100 years ago to who they never met, to somebody that's in their family, to somebody we know maybe in the public eye. So I'd like to pose that question to you, Marie. Who inspires you and why?
Well, there are many people in my life, but I think what inspires me is also the younger generation. First of all, my children, right, who are the younger generation. There are, millennials and there are Generation Z. So because I'm still an 18-year-old. And, I'm always very inspired by the younger people, the upcoming generations, because they see things totally different. And they have inspired me to keep young of spirit and young of mind. Yeah. And it's really lovely to see then when their friends are saying, oh, you have such a cool mom, right? And she's like, I'm turning 60 next year. But still they're like, oh, and she knows everything about apps and everything about technology and what's living in the world, right? All the changes that are happening. And I have to be honest, the younger generation is what inspires me the most, to stay young, to be updated with everything, and also to see that I really, really trust the knowledge and the creativity of the younger generation. And I know a lot of people from my age are saying, oh, I don't know what will happen with the younger generation. The world is not going well, the climate warming up. And I said, I'm sure they have the solutions. Yeah, I am sure of that. I mean, perhaps they're not visible yet, but I'm sure with their creativity and the way they're thinking, they already have the solutions somewhere in their mind, and they just have to still manifest. So I believe in the younger generation, and I believe there will be the hope and the solution of the future.
Wow. I love it. And I love that fresh perspective, because you're right. We do tend to hear the other side of that a lot. And so I love to hear somebody spreading hope around the younger generation, because I have a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old. So I'm even I even have to rely on them even further than that, because we're going way back, right? I don't even know what they'll be calling them at that point. Like Z, we've hit the end of the alphabet. So I don't even know what their name would be. but I have to rely on them as well. So I love that. And of course, I have to have confidence in them and faith in them, because I wouldn't have brought them into the world if I didn't believe there would be a world for them to enjoy. So I love that. And so let me ask you this question. I call it the passenger question. It's pretty simple, but if you were sitting on a plane, which I'm sure you've done many times, sitting next to a stranger who leans over and says, I'm just starting my journey, or I'm struggling on my journey, do you have any advice for me? Whether they knew who you were or not, what do you think you might tell them for advice?
Well, actually, that has happened several times to me. So because, they recognize me, or they have seen The Secret, like whatever. And the first thing I always do is I want to listen to their story. For me, I want to understand the human person first, the human being, what they're going through. And so for me, I don't first give advice. I never do. I always first listen. Because how can I give advice from which level, from which background? I don't know. I need to first know what lives in the heart of people, right? And so when I listen to their story, then I always sit still a little bit, like, okay, what? And if they ask advice, I would always try to go to a moment in my life, or a moment in somebody's life I know that is similar. And then say, speaking from my heart, then I first of all would definitely give them a perspective of hope, a perspective of, change will come, right? If you work on it, if you keep moving forward. Don't stand still. I always believe the word change is so powerful, because it comes from the word chi and angle. Yeah. So it's like, it means look at the energy from a different perspective. Yeah. So if you look all the way this way, but what if you just turn yourself a little bit? You will see something different. Yeah. If you're all the time looking down, because life is making you look down, then look up. You will see the stars. Could be great. Yeah. So just changing your perception and your perspective of things could really make a big change in people's life. And I try then in the conversation to give them, like a suggestion of how they can change their perception. Yeah. And say, I understand. Like I was just talking today to somebody, and she's like 76 years old. I mean, she's stiff, she has pain everywhere. And I said, I understand. And she was grumbling, and I'm getting old. And I'm like, let's be honest, there are people at 76 that are not living anymore. There are others that are in an elderly home. You still live by yourself. You can still go for shopping. You can work on your own computer. We were, on the Zoom. I said, isn't that amazing? You're also beautiful and orderly, organized. You look amazing. And I said, why don't you look at that perception of your life? And she's like, oh my God, Marie, I've just been so focused on the negative. So I always try, when I give advice, to listen and then really answer. And that's what I do as a mentor. If that is for, my students or for high-end clients, I always listen very carefully first. And I think that's one of the things that most people don't do anymore. They give right away advice. Yeah. But just in the space of listening, that is already so important, because that is what people sometimes need the most, that somebody listens to them.
I love it. So this is my last official question, and then the unofficial one's going to be just how we can learn more. But the last official question, I didn't think I was going to ask an extra one, but I just want to ask you a super quick question. On The Secret, for example, was obviously a book and a DVD. I've heard many people say The Secret book has changed their life. And so I want to pose the question to you, Marie. Do you have a book or two that you either recommend to people or that you can truly say changed your life? Is there a book you go to that you tell people about?
Actually, I don't. I have to be honest. I read books and I always forget the titles of the books. So I would definitely always suggest The Secret for sure. But I always say to people, read life. Yeah, the biggest book is your heart. Yeah, you can read all the books and they're full of wisdom for sure. But listening to your heart and ask the questions to your heart and ask the questions to you, right? what is right for me? What is good for me? What is love for me? What is the right direction for me to go? I have to be honest, all these answers I never found in any book. Yeah. I always found by listening and meditation and prayer, in silence too, in my journal as I'm writing things down. For me, I would say having your own journal is probably the best advice I can give you, because then you write down what you feel, what is in you, and or speak it out in a conversation. And that is probably what I would suggest the most.
Well, that works for me. And that technically, I guess, becomes the most life-changing book, is their own journal. That maybe
Correct.
becomes life-changing. So the last question, like I said, is the unofficial one. Maybe the most important, though, because it's such a short interview, people are listening to this great, amazing advice, and they're also saying, I want to learn more about her. I want to follow her. I want to know what she's got on the go. Is there a hub or a place that you would send people if they want to learn more about your work?
Of course. Well, they first can go to my website, mariediamond.com, but I also would suggest that they go to the free Mary Diamond app that they can download, where there is information about Feng Shui. There's information about the daily message. There are meditations on it. And of course, go to my Instagram, Marie Diamond 8. 8 stands for infinity. And there I have a lot of videos every week that support you, that help you. And of course, go to my YouTube channel, because there's longer information there. And also check out my podcast. And so there's so much wonderful possibilities now to check out what I bring. And I want to thank you, Corey, again for having this amazing time with you.
It's been an absolute pleasure. With your permission, I'll call it a to be continued, because there's never enough time. Thank you.
Thank you.